I do definitely like the new bumper. So, good evening. Saturday night, we are live on UCY.TV radio. As the bumper tells you, it is the Ochelli Effect. I'm your host, Chuck Ochelli, for this wonderful March 14th, 2015. Anyway, man, oh man, interesting week, I would say, that's for sure. You got Hitler and her wonderful scandals and all of that other wonderful, fun, enjoyable, just enthralling distraction out there in the mainstream. The hell with all that. Tonight, one of the founding mothers of the alternative media as it stands, and hey, as it shall stand, as it has stood, as it will remain to be, and all those other declensions and all that. Meria Heller from Meria.net, The Mouth That Roars, will be joining us very shortly. I want to thank everybody who has decided to tune in on their little applications, on their fondle slab of choice, etc., etc. I want to also thank you for coming to the webpage at ucy.tv/TOE. And, of course, those of you who catch it further downstream on YouTube, or if you just happen to download it, exchange it, email it, whatever it is, I appreciate every last one of you, and I do absolutely show the greatest gratitude that I can for every last person who bothers to even give me a moment of their time. Okay. Anyway, let's see if the Skype gods will cooperate with us today. You never can tell, right? Man, oh man. Let's see. It just may be, and it does look like it might be.
Hello?
Meria. Meria, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Chuck?
Well, you know, I almost don't want to answer that question, honestly, but it is what it is. I started calling you the founding mother, as it were, of the alternative media. I hope you don't mind.
No, what do I care? I don't care. Greg Pallas calls me the inventor of internet radio.
Well, you know, and that is true as well. I mean, long before anybody had their post-September 11th awakening, because September 11th hadn't happened yet, you were already doing this.
I know. Who would believe that I would be still doing it, going into my 16th year this summer?
That's right. Ever since 2000, of course, if you go to Meria.net, there are a couple of free shows you can check out first before you decide to subscribe. It is definitely worth a listen. And, of course, Meria does appear also with Jack Blood, the Blood and Guts thing. I always point that out whenever you're on the show, I know, because I love Jack and I love you. So, therefore,
Well, Jack and I have been together for 17 years because Jack was my producer on regular radio.
That's right. That's right.
So it's a long time in the making.
Oh, absolutely. You know, Maria, I'm starting to find some of the news depressing at this point because it just seems like I don't know, like a profound deja vu event continuously on the streams out there in the mainstream anyway. And you know, even in the alternative stream at this point, it's just it's the regurgitation and repeating of what was and you know what was supposed to have been. I don't know. Are you getting that feeling lately?
No, actually, the news is so fast and furious. It's like every day there's some other new horror story. So
Mm.
now when I do my news show, I announce it as news from Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, I saw that the Planet of the Apes graphic.
Right.
You know.
Because how stupid are humans? You know, I mean, I don't see much sign of evolution. I do see that we've been devolving over the past 50 years. I discussed that with one of my guests this week. You know, we're supposed to be moving forward, but everything in society looks like we're moving back to the Stone Age, especially with the religious wrong in office.
The religious wrong instead of the religious right.
Right. And you know what? I don't care if people want to have a religion. Keep it to yourself. Don't start throwing that stuff at everybody else because majority of Americans have lost their religion. Okay. And a lot of our young people aren't getting involved in religion from the get-go. So
Mm.
I see it as a good thing, but you know, the small white male minority that we have in office of psychopaths just shoving their religion down our throat every day.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And religion is much like a wonderfully and beautifully crafted sword. I mean, after all, it can be an absolutely wondrous work of art that astounds many an individual and can be used for much creative good, defense, wonder, and everything else. But the problem is, if you shove it down somebody's throat, it's just not productive.
Well, we see ourselves often referred to as a Christian nation. I don't see anything Christian about what's going on in this nation.
Well, you know that is a problem. Also, I mean, I didn't get a vote on that one. I don't know about you,
Mm.
you know, because I do not identify myself as a Christian. I choose not to identify myself, generally speaking,
Right.
because I have an ever evolving sort of concept of the spiritual world. You know, as new information becomes available, as my experiences change, as my life cycle sort of ever goes forward, you know, on this wonderful ride that we do call life, you know, I've had ever changing sort of points of view regarding this subject. And, you know, it seems to me as though if you get sort of married to a particular storyline, you know, you're ever stagnant in that particular pond. You know what I
Well,
mean?
it's in just another program of this reality, and people are so used to their program, whether they're even educated on it, okay, they're still going to defend it to the death. And a lot of people that I do argue, religion with, they've never even read their own holy books, okay, and yet
Mm.
they defend it with it's a point of arrogance about their ignorance. It's like read the book before you argue, okay? But don't just argue because you're repeating what somebody else said. Do the homework.
Yeah, that would be nice, you know, if people actually understood the point that they're willing to sacrifice, especially others' lives for. You know, they if they actually you know had a concept of what it was that they were willing to die for and kill for, it might be you know somewhat enlightening, maybe.
Maybe, maybe. Listen, I've realized for a very long time so many different things that I feel about religion. And believe me, I was raised in religion, so I think I gave me the right to knock it. But I really believe religion is a have for the have-nots. It's something to keep the majority of people busy, waiting on some afterlife reward or punishment, while the elite reptilians just bloodsuck everything out of us while we're alive.
Yeah, it is kind of like the large waiting line, you know, at the amusement park that doesn't actually have a ride at the end. You know, that's kind of what it seems to be. Uh,
I know. Napoleon said it best, centuries ago. And he said religion was invented to keep the poor from murdering the rich.
Mm.
So, and I don't care, some people really are, into their religion and they actually live it, the principles of it. And I say good for them because for a lot of people, it's a necessary control because a lot of people are out of control in their own life, whether they're, addicts of some sort or, just off the wall, and religion kind of straightens them out. But I've always felt that Christian is a verb and not a noun. It's
Mm.
by your actions. Say you're a Christian. Don't just use the word and ignore everybody from the homeless to the starving, kids, everything else going on in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you something, and that all comes down to really just being healthy, which I always find it remarkable, sort of your approach to health. You take a very standard, scientific approach to it regarding, vitamins and nutrition and things like this. But at the same time, you also take an interesting spiritual view, and this is something that we really have never covered in depth. And you've been on my show many times, and I want to just thank you for, doing that because, first of all, it gives me an excuse not to ramble for 2 hours, you know, and
Then let's go there.
yeah, absolutely. Let's absolutely go there because, the wheel, okay. The concept. We never did cover this on my show, and I wonder where you would start. For somebody who's never heard of any of that, for someone who doesn't necessarily understand the concept of balance in that particular way. I mean, where would you begin to introduce somebody to that?
It's very simple. Number one, after many years, I put together a video on it and also a full-length book. But, when I was searching, leaving religion and looking for something that made sense, I serendipitously met a fabulous teacher named Sunbear.
Hmm.
And, through so many weird and, and crazy ways, he ends up, I was living in New York at the time, he ends up coming to New York to do a 3-day seminar. And I could tell you that I drove in driving rain to get there. And as soon as I saw what he taught, which is a medicine wheel, and people can Google that and see pictures of it, etc.,
Hmm.
my whole body started shaking. The more I heard this man talk about our interconnectedness and interdependence on every living thing, not just each other as humans, the more sense it made to me. And I really got very deeply involved in Native American spirituality, learning as much as I could about the history of Native Americans, what their spirituality used to be like, because as an environmentalist, it spoke to me. So I started, learning about it more and more, teaching it, and pretty much the philosophy is a very simple one. We're all connected to each other, and we all need each other,
Mm.
not just humans. And when you look at the environmental destruction of this planet from human ignorance, greed, you see that people haven't gotten the message. All right. They're saying by 2050, we're going to have nothing but terrible water shortages throughout this country. You think about man playing God with, weather machines and harp and spraying and, all these weird and crazy things they're doing to mess up the planet. We are actually creating a situation where we're destroying the web of life that humans need in order to stay on this planet. Years ago, you hear a lot of people, Chuck, say, save the planet, save the planet. I was one of those people, too, by the way. And then I realized what arrogance to think that humans can save the planet. The planet's it's gotten hit with a whole lot worse things than humans and survived. The truth of the matter is the slogan should be save the humans.
No, absolutely, because and I've always said this that the planet is not what's going to be in trouble. This thing will live on if it chooses to shake us off like I don't know, like a dog might shake off some dead fleas. That'll not be a problem for the planet.
Exactly. It's funny you used that expression because that's the same expression Sunbear would use. He said the earth is like a giant dog and humans are fleas on its back, and one day she's going to shake them right off.
No, absolutely. And, Native American spiritual culture is so fascinating and really still as yet, even in the modern sort of information age, really undiscovered by most of the consumers of information out there. It's one of those sort of understudied things, even on the internet, where it seems as though almost everything of the most minor fascination can be accessed in one way or another, too, right?
Right. Well, don't forget here, especially in the United States, we don't even want to think about Native Americans because of the genocide that we did to them when we invaded their country. There's still a lot of subliminal guilt living in every American. So the last thing they want to do is look at anything that has to do with Native Americans.
No, absolutely. Well, there is that guilt complex, and there's a legitimate, reason for it. After all, I mean, I also point out a lot of times when people bring this up to me that I'm not speaking for myself regarding the white man, as it were, because my family didn't arrive here until far after those genocides occurred. But
Exactly, like being Italian, our people came here through Ellis Island, in early 1900. And I'm really glad that I wasn't one of those white Anglo-Saxon maniac Protestants, the scum of the earth that was kicked out of Europe, that, as the natives say, first they fell on their knees when they landed, and then they fell on the Indians.
well, right, and I mean, look, even in the redacted history books that still do exist, even again in the internet age where the electronic historical record is constantly undergoing alterations, you can still find profound evidence of exactly what you're talking about. And I mean,
Absolutely.
and this is just a fact, again, an ugly fact that a lot of people don't really feel comfortable examining because, as much as they like to pass judgments on other cultures,
Mhm.
to pass judgment on oneself seems to be a little bit more of a tall order, right?
Right. Well, my father used to say every time you point a finger at someone else, you have three fingers pointing back at you.
Ah,
He
your
was full of all that Yoda kind of wisdom.
yeah, your dad. Every time you bring up your dad, I swear, he had a special kind of wisdom, that's for sure.
Yes, he did. It still freaks me out how smart he was all those years ago when most people were still, stuck in Father Knows Best.
Right. I mean, they were stuck on that sort of very shallow, you know, uh, barely even, uh, you know, interesting interdimensional world. I mean, it was very two-dimensional in a sense, in a cultural sense,
Right,
absolutely. And
right.
things were very black and white, and not just the televisions.
Yeah, but you know what? My father was always a free thinker and he questioned everything and he taught us to do the same. I can't count how many times he said, question everything, especially authority. And when I look at America today and what's going on, especially with, are you there?
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Here's some music there.
All
Yeah.
right, I think now me just wanting to stream the show has upstreamed all the way to the Chuck Ochelli show. I believe that's
Hey, Jack.
on Radio Free Blood Live. Did that just happen?
I think it did. Something happened.
I wanted to get Chuck and Maria. I just wanted to stream you, Maria, for our little radio station, and now I'm on the air. So,
Well, hi, Jack. We're just talking about you. You missed it.
oh well, that's what we call. Can I say it on your show, Chuck? Are there any limits to like language or anything like that?
No, not at all, sir. Go for it.
On Radio Free Blood, we call that a fuck bomb. So don't be blowing skirt. Don't be, don't blow skirt up my butt. It's something like that, or smoke.
I don't know. You might look cute in a skirt, Jack.
It's been done, and trust me, it's not good. Just
Not pretty, huh? You don't want to shave your legs.
No, it's not because I'm not hot. It's just that I'm old.
Oh, nobody says a tree's not hot because it's old.
Hey, welcome to Radio Free Blood, you guys. I've only been on for 2 days. We're still experimenting. And one of the things I want to do, Chuck, is when I see Maria's on the air with Chuck Ochelli on UCY TV, I just want to tap into that, and we'll just play that for an hour, completely unlicensed, just stealing it from you all the way. All credit to your sponsors, and all hail to the fascist lord.
Beautiful. Jack, anytime, sir. I'm always glad to be on the same air with you, and of course your simulcast over here as well. And so, thank you.
Well, it's a vicious circle now, isn't it, Chuck?
It is continuous. It's almost like being a glutton for punishment.
No. What it is today is pi, because it's 314. We've been talking about that on our station for the last few hours. 314 pi. It just goes on forever. It's a number that has no end. Okay, kind of like our debt obligation
Right.
and the police state and everything else. A euphemism for just about absolutely everything. So ultimately, Chuck and Meria, we want you guys to go. Just go. We're gonna step off here, and we're gonna get out of the show. Thank you for having me on. Go check out at radiofreeblood.com. You can listen. My show actually airs there. It's clearer than you can hear it anywhere else, and it's all free. But Blood and Guts, Meria, talk about the circle. Talk about the number that goes on forever. Chuck and UCY stream me, right? And now I'm streaming them. And then Meria and I do a once-a-month show at Meria with an E, Meria.net, called Blood and Guts. And
Right, that's the 24th this month.
And now she's on my network, radiofreeblood.com, for all the people. So it's pie. Totally pie.
I like pie.
You have to be pie. You have to love pie, be pie. And I'm telling all the people at Radio Free Blood, listen, just as much as we can broadcast, and vote for me for president. Free pie for everyone. Let them eat pie. No. I wasn't talking to Hillary Clinton. That was, it didn't land very well. Sorry.
Oh.
Jack, you're such a hoot. I can hear you're in rare form tonight.
That's code for, I've had a few drinks.
Oh, well, see, you're ahead. I'm in Arizona, so it's still only 5 o'clock.
Well, hey, man, to all of the people just now tuning into radiofreeblood.com and all the things that we do, Chuck is the blind JFK researcher. He's amazing. He's awesome. He's one of my favorite callers on our syndicated show. And Meria Heller is my freedom mother, my sister, and you got to check out our show. So I'm going to let you guys go. Just move on with the show, but keep me on this stream that we have connected here on Skype so my listeners can hear you too, okay?
Excellent.
Be bold.
And may mighty forces come to your aid.
That's it. Jack Blood, everybody. Man, oh man. Yeah, so now we are being heard on Radio Free Blood, so there we
Gotta
go.
love it. Gotta love it. Well, I don't remember where we were up to. All of a sudden, I saw Jack's picture on my Skype, and I'm like, oh.
I was going to quietly tell you about it, but what happened was I just sort of got informed that that's the way we had to do it, and I just did it. So
It was fun. It's fun. I have no problem with that.
hey, a little spontaneousness on the live radio broadcast, it's always a good idea to do something that they don't expect, right?
Right. Sort of like probably before your time, Chuck, the Soupy Sales show where anybody could drop in at any moment. It was like one surprise after the other.
Yeah, I do know who Soupy Sales is, but I don't have a really seriously profound memory of his stuff. But
Well, I do. He had a pretty sick and twisted sense of humor, and he got all cut off the air because back in those days, he said something very vulgar. He made 2 mistakes on live TV. One of them was he told the kids in the audience, when your parents are sleeping tonight, go in your dad's pockets and take out the pieces of paper with pictures of the president on them and mail them to Uncle Soupy.
I have heard this story, and I've heard it many times. And I mean, as you know, I'm about a generation behind you there. I mean,
Right.
But I've heard this story over and over again, and I still find it wholly unbelievable that somebody
But
did
that's
that.
what he did. And then he made the mistake of giving a joke out with a double entendre. He said, my wife can't make apple pie, but she sure can make my banana cream. Back in the 50s or whenever the hell that was a shockaroo, and that was the end of the Soupy Sales show.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like those Red Fox party albums where, everybody remembers them as being extremely dirty. But if you
Right.
listen very closely to some of what was going on, my favorite one was, of course, about, the soap that Red would do, and he would say, listen, here's your soap for your shower, and he would, make like a mock commercial, and the name of the soap was Fug. Okay,
Right, I remember that.
so if it's dirty, you can fug it.
Right, I remember that.
So Fugg, mind you. Now, of course, we know what it sounds like, but then, of
Right,
course, he creates a follow up and he says, and now we have a new laundry detergent. So if you can't fug it, you can always sug it.
right,
Sug, which again was considered completely outrageous at the
right.
time.
But when you look at TV or a movie today, I mean, it's hard, you're hard pressed to find something that isn't like total nudity, total sex, total violence, total cursing. It's like we've become immune to it. And I am now starting to find it offensive. I'm like, okay, I know what's going on. Can't we go back to just the black screen? Do I have to see every detail of everybody copulating? After so many decades on this planet, even that gets boring to watch.
Yeah, well, look, bring back the suggestive shuffle and shuddering sort of wisping curtain shot, which was only supposed to be
Right.
suggestive of what was just off camera, right?
Right. Right. But with the American Taliban we have in office now, I have no doubt we'll be going back to even more extreme, super moral lifestyle based on the morality they talk about but don't live themselves.
Well, yeah, that's exactly the point. Of course, selective enforcement, which has absolutely nothing to do with the alleged leaders.
Mhm.
Don't whatever you do, don't go and dig into their personal lives because, after all, we have a certain bile count that we have to make sure we don't need as human beings, and I wouldn't suggest it for anybody who has a weak constitution of any kind. And of course, they continuously weaken our constitution. That's the way that particular cookie crumbles, right?
All
And
right.
and
Well,
by the way,
if you remember George W., the Idiot King, he called the Constitution a goddamn piece of paper.
well, to him it was. I mean, I guess from his perspective, where there is, no particular punishment where you can get away with failing your health exam or whatever when you're in the Air National Guard. Okay, whatever
Right.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah. He was in the Guard. He was as AWOL could be. But maybe that's a good thing. I'll tell you what, I met some of our modern day Marines at a party, and these kids look smaller than my grandchildren, and they're all like stone cold drunks. And I'm like, oh my God, these are the new Marines. We're in trouble. That was my first thought. I was like, if this is what's defending us, we're really in trouble. Back in my day, Marines had, maybe they had size requirements and maybe they actually had to have a brain. But some of these kids, it actually frightened me. When I see some of the young people out there in different fields and how inept they are at their jobs, all I say is, I fear for the future. That's become one of my latest sentences. I fear for the future.
Mm. Yeah, and unfortunately, I share that, and I don't even have quite the experience that you do. Although I will say that though you are older than me, you still look good in a skirt, Maria. So just to
Ah,
call back to what Jack was talking about, he might not be so preferable in a skirt at his age, but you at your age, you're in excellent shape actually, and of course that has a lot to do with the total health idea that you have, and that sort of unique perspective that combines all of the aspects of the being, which does include, after all, the intellectual, the spiritual, and the physical. Uh,
absolutely.
yeah.
So many aspects to being in balance. You have to be in balance emotionally, spiritually, sexually, financially, intellectually. I mean, and most people are not. And that's why so many people are depressed or they're on, prescription drugs or their bodies are very sickly or they're, very obese. They're tired all the time. They have no love of life anymore. They're just going through the motions like robots. And it's not that hard to be healthy. See, my opinion, Chuck, and my feeling and philosophy is, if you're gonna live to be old, there's no point in being older if you don't have quality of life, if you can't move your body, if you're all crippled, if you can't, talk right, walk right, etc. So what I do health-wise, I do for me. I don't do it to impress anybody else. I just look at some of my peers and that frightens me. And I'm like, no, I'll never be like that. I've already asked a couple of my friends to kill me if I ever get like that.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, my joke usually is, look, my best friend will definitely be the pillow, and you are more than welcome to hold it if I get into the condition. The people that I sometimes see, I mean, and we talked about this too regarding, your health. It's not necessarily for everybody to live completely cleanly, but if you're going to at least have an honest point of view about it, I
Hey, I'm
mean,
no saint. I never claimed to be a saint. Okay. I
mm,
like to party just like the rest of people, but it's called moderation. Okay. A word that a lot of younger people don't seem to understand. Anything in moderation is not going to kill you. But, look, the world is so screwed up, Chuck. I don't blame people for wanting to drug out and just pass out and not even participate. It's ugly out there. You started talking about fear out there. It's a scary place, and I rather make jokes about it on my show by referring to it as Planet of the Apes, even though some of that's not a joke, just to make people laugh at the news because people are getting so trapped in this matrix, this illusion of lies. And of course, it's going to bring their fear up. But to me, fear is a waste of time. Unless it fuels your fire, what's the point in feeling that?
well, right, and I had somebody, when I talked about, the need for living in a fearless way, because that seems to be the only mode of operation that someone can be in where they will accomplish the greater things. If you allow fear to govern, your sensibilities and to not allow you to have the courage to move forward into what could be a potentially dangerous situation, you have already surrendered a great deal of possibilities. And I always say, don't embrace fear, embrace fearless thought. But someone did say to me that fear can be a healthy thing, you
Well,
know.
yeah, jumping out of the way of a moving bus, that's a good, healthy part of fear. I don't want to get hit by that bus. Let me jump out.
Well, see, I relegate that kind of action more to the self-preservation kind of thing, and I don't think you necessarily need to be afraid in order to desire to, preserve oneself. I mean, after all, you don't do the healthy things that you do out of fear. You do them, out of love for yourself. You
All right,
know.
if I'm going to be here, I better be in fighting shape in case they come after me. I want to be able to kick a few asses on my way out.
Oh well, damn right, and you certainly will. I know you're in better shape than I am, and that's what can I say? But
Never too late. Never
no,
too late. If
uh,
I can do it, everyone can do it. That's my opinion. You just need some discipline and some motivation and just get to it. Because listen, everything in our society is set up to make us fat and sick because fat and sick people are easier to control. Everything from the poisons in our food, the genetically modified food, the food colorings, the dyes, the toxins in the food, the toxins in their plastic water bottles, the filth in our water, the filth in the chemtrails. It's all, the filth, the super filth in the pharmaceutical business. All of that works together in conjunction with, poisonous vaccines to make you so physically and mentally sick that you don't care what's going on in politics.
well, right, and you really are so disconnected, and of course that's the thing that I'm always focused on is the disconnect that one has not only to the reality around them but to their fellow human being, and I think that this is actually, the genesis from which most of the modern day ills, as they were in the society, are born, because without empathy and without the ability to interact with your fellow man in a in a real sort of tangible way, I think that the sort of promotion of the surrogate lifestyle, which has been propagated a lot by the internet. And of course, it sounds almost counterintuitive considering we're talking on a Skype and we're broadcasting on an internet radio station and also on Radio Free Blood and all this
Right, but we're
technology.
using technology for its highest purpose. Most people are not. They're
Right.
using it, for porn or for stupid, cursing back and forth on social media. See the latest of, the lowest among us that we consider celebrities. What are they up to? Who's banging who? Technology, like any other tool, could be used for good or bad. The problem is the majority, especially in government, use it for bad. And isolation. We're becoming an isolated society.
Well, right, and it goes right back to that sword we were talking about when we first got on the air. I mean, I have seen some absolutely stunning, beautiful pieces of artwork and some great things done with the katana, with all sorts of swords, actually, not just the Japanese style, but at the same time, if you take a wonderful and beautifully crafted instrument like this and try and shove it down someone else's throat, well, your results are what they are. So.
Exactly. Well, to that person, it might be art.
And that is something that I didn't fully consider. However,
So if it was Dexter, he would consider it a work of art.
well, that's true. Either Dexter or someone in our CDC or government, or so
Right.
one of those murderers. Anyway, sorry, I always have to do that. I'm somewhat sarcastic. People.
No, really? That's good. That's
Yeah.
a good. They say people that are sarcastic use more of their brains than people that aren't.
Well, I think I failed that test by just a bit, but it's okay.
That's like my specialty, especially reading the news. The news insults my intelligence.
No.
When I look at what they put out there as news, I'm like, okay, what are they not saying? That's the only way I can figure out what to tell my audience for news. What are they not saying? Because what they put out in front of us is it's mind numbing. It insults my intelligence.
Well, right. I mean, right around the time that a whole lot of interesting events were going on, we were being inundated with the flow of Bill Cosby accusations and, things like this, which, not to say that that's not a deplorable act, but, when we're on the precipice financially, when people are sick and dying throughout the world, when we're engaged in never-ending warfare in the Middle East where innocent populations are being decimated, I dare say that that the Bill Cosby story is not really what should be leading the news. That was what was going on for a
They
while.
throw out distraction all the time, like what color is this dress? I can tell you the God honest truth, as many times as I saw that posted, I was never curious to click it and see what the hell is this about. But everybody got so sucked into whatever that was that they don't pay attention to what's really important, and that's the objective.
Well, see, and that's what my contention is regarding something like this week. I mean, I don't know what stood out to you this week, but the distraction of the week, as far as I'm concerned, was definitely the, Hillary Clinton, use of email and et cetera, et cetera. And who, at the end of the day, cares? And if you mean to tell me that, our loving NSA is not able to track her personal email, I have plenty of beachfront property right there in the middle of the state of Arizona to sell you. It's right on the Atlantic Ocean.
Look, Bush did the same thing. Millions of emails on his torture memos and stuff were gone. Nobody cared. And to me, why are we making a story about this? The NSA's got copies of everybody's email, phone calls, probably what size underwear we wear. So all they had to do was ask the NSA for copies.
Well, yeah, at the end of the day, why not just go to the source and go to the NSA, which is tracking everybody, and just get your copies there and don't bother asking Hillary and giving her airtime.
And you want to go after Hillary, let's talk about the Clinton body count. Okay, let's talk about real things. All right. I mean, I can't wait to see, who the two are finally going to shake out at, and I'm sure Jack's still tuned in. Jack's predicted Hillary versus Jeb Bush. But that means I can bring up all the old stories of evil for both of them as they run for the elected office of president. So it'll be like a review period for all of us. We just have to dig out our old notes and say the same stuff all over again.
Well, right, and it's the pregame distraction for the already the already pre-selected selection, So what is the difference anyway? And meanwhile, I mean, I saw on your site that you were talking to Jesse Ventura recently, and I don't agree with everything Jesse has to say by any stretch of the imagination. But one of the most profound things I've ever heard the guy say is that politics is really akin to professional wrestling, and in more ways than one, of course, because at the end of the day, usually the big superstars aren't actually involved in any sort of realistic combat of any sort. It's not a gladiatorial sport that it pretends to be, and neither is the great left-right paradigm, as it were. So hey, it does seem as though it's kind of similar. So it's actually a whole lot more profound than I think he intended.
Right, it's all theater and bad theater. Here's an interesting little sidebar. We just got the Nazi of all Nazis as governor here in Arizona. The first minute this Republican serf gets in office, he starts slashing like millions of dollars in education, millions of dollars, I'm trying to think, in access, which is Medicaid in the state. And all the people that benefit from those things are, this is a state where everybody says, I'm Republican, this is a Republican state, I'm going to vote Republican no matter what. Well, all these people now are all pissed off because they're losing their benefits and all of this. And my answer to them right to their face is, besides, of course, you voted for him, you deserve this, is you may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. How's that feel? The people that don't care, they never care until it affects them personally. And that's the problem with everything wrong in this country now. No one cares unless it's happening to them, unless it's their kid shot dead laying in the street for 4.5 hours, unless it's their dog or their 92-year-old veteran grandpa who was murdered by a cop because the cop thought his cane was a gun. All right, nobody cares until it happens to them. And at the rate this police state's going, it's going to happen to everybody.
Well, right, and this is the kind of thing that, again, seemed to be relegated more to the Los Angeles area than anywhere else. I always find it extremely funny when people act shocked that, there is a corrupt police regime or subculture or whatever else in L.A. It cracks me up because I almost defy someone to find a 5-year period in history, at least, in modern history, where there wasn't some sort of corruption scandal, or whatever else in the alleged city of angels,
Right. Yeah, you're going to be seeing the angels pretty soon if you happen to get stuck with a cop there.
Well, I don't think they'd be caught. They'd be caught wingless in L.A., though, Maria. I mean,
But you know what? LAPD just got a 4% raise. 4% this year, 2% next year, 2% after that, because the police chief says that he wants to keep attracting the best police in the country.
Well, at least he's being honest. They're doing a good job when it comes
They're
to
doing what they're told to do. They're doing what they're trained to do, just like Ferguson.
And isn't it interesting that is coming back up as well, right? With the recent events there, and of course with the interconnectivity of this and the Black Lives Matter campaign, which is everywhere at this point. Although a lot more quietly if you watch mainstream media, right, than it used to be.
They don't want to cover it. Don't forget. I mean, come on, Chuck. If you ever watch mainstream media, especially the news, I would say 95% of them are white. So do you think they want to cover Ferguson? All of a sudden now 2 cops got shot there from the grassy knoll. That's the story they're throwing out, from a grassy knoll. And so my first thought, the grassy knoll appears again. And to me, my first impression was it's a setup. They want to make these protesters look bad, like, to justify the cops, whipping and a whomping everybody half dead in the street there. I mean, 75% of the people there have been arrested. What the hell? Okay.
Yeah, and meanwhile, any form of civil disobedience, is now tantamount to being a terrorist. because even if you are nonviolent, you're a nonviolent extremist. And, remember what Cameron said a couple of months back now, I guess it is. But still, that statement sticks in my craw that, anybody who basically doesn't buy the party line or the accepted wisdom of the state slash media slash academia is therefore, in absolute contravention to peaceful existence, and therefore is a terrorist, right, Maria?
Well, didn't the Nazis say that? Before he died, I was very fortunate to have Howard Zinn on my show, but I think I interviewed Howard 3 times. And he had said that sometimes civil disobedience is called for. When I've talked to people in that generation, Daniel Ellsberg and this other hero who really had a big part in the original unions in this country, who's also no longer alive, Julius Margolin, he said, we went beyond civil disobedience. We broke the law. We occupied buildings. We did what we had to do to get workers' rights. When I look at the average American today, I don't think they have the guts to do it. I just don't see it. Let alone the physical strength or even the mental capacity to know that there is something we can do. We don't have to sit back and take this shit. Imagine if everybody went on a general strike.
Well, that is the concept that has stuck with me for years, that if a general strike was had, in this country, it would actually shake the system for a moment. But, then again, when you see things like, people getting angry temporarily over the, once again increasing oil prices, regardless of how that system is rigged on so many different levels and how that actually contributes to a whole lot of facets of your life, whether you understand it or not, it speaks to me that there is a lack of critical thought in the population in general. There's just like no capacity for it, no respect for it, no desire to seek out the actual answers to what is in fact directly affecting people in a lot of cases, because they're so involved with, again, these great weapons of mass distraction.
But you also have to know they don't teach you critical thinking or any thinking skills in school. It's all about memorizing the party line again, okay? Memorize this so you can pass the test, and then you can have the same boring job your father had for half the pay, okay? So they're not being taught critical thinking. One of the people I think that, a lot of people should check out his site is Richard Grove's work, because Richard's got hours and hours and hours on how to do, how to critically think, how to study, things that nobody really talks about. And his site is tragedyandhope.com. And I've had so many great interviews with him. He's one of the brightest young men on the planet. And, you can't blame all Americans. They've never been taught that. They didn't have a father that said to them every day of their life, question everything, especially authority. They didn't have a father that sat down and taught his kids how to read and write before they went to school, okay? So you look at today, everybody's so busy trying to earn a living to pay their bills on a salary that's equal to what they were making 20 years ago. They don't have time for the family, and that, too, is done by design. Nothing our nation is suffering happened by accident. Nothing.
Well, right. It didn't happen by accident, and it certainly didn't happen overnight either. Occasionally I run across people that seem to believe that this really did happen rather suddenly and rather recently, and I wonder where they've been and what they've been looking at, because, this kind of thing did not occur all at once, necessarily. I mean, I would say that in the span of my lifetime, the decline can be marked very easily, during that time span. And I was born in the early 70s. And think about what has actually gone on in this country since. I mean, at the time I was born, the Vietnam War was still going on. Richard Nixon was president, okay? And totally different world than what we see now, Maria.
Right. Well, I've been around a long time. I mean, I don't remember it, but if I had to go by when I was born, Harry Truman was still president, okay? The first conscious president I remember as a kid when I was in school was Eisenhower. So we're talking about really the happy days. So I would say over the past 50 years, we'll just say 50, okay? It's probably more like 60. But the past 50 years, it's accelerated, but not at the speed of light as it has since 9/11, 2001. That was the excuse to really clamp down and push full steam ahead.
Right. I mean, it seems to me as though, and I know that I have a, sort of a slanted view on this, but, my particular view is that the bleeding started on November 22nd, 1963,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
was accelerated by various means ever since. And of course, like you said, light speed acceleration occurred post 9/11 because this
Mhm.
really did shift our reality in a whole lot of ways.
It
And
threw us into an instant police state that's only worsening every single day.
well, yeah, and to continuously, acquiesce to that appeal to authority, which is what it is constantly, is an appeal to authority, whether we're talking about the police state or what I describe as a medical tyranny, through the instruments of, big pharma, the general sort of medical society that exists at this point,
Uh-huh.
the vaccination programs, which are a little bit different than just the regular big pharma program, but of course all intertwined, interconnected, and interdependent. This is
Oh,
not.
look, you've got a little baby there. I mean, your son is still what, less than a year old, isn't he?
Well, right, he was born in June, so
So you have to make decisions with vaccines that might be now taken out of your hands because now there is a bill that they want to pass that all adults in this country have to have all their childhood vaccines and boosters, and the comment period is only until I think the week after the next. I can tell you this, they'll have to kill me before I take any of their vaccines.
Well, I've stated several times that in order for anybody to put any more poison in that little boy's veins than has already been put, because they did sneak in the vitamin K shot, because I did require a hospital to have Kim deliver him. The bottom line is that they snuck that one in, and then tried to sneak past me the hepatitis B vaccine. Okay, to which I first stopped them, and then tried to have a reasonable conversation, at any rate, with the pediatrician, and asked them quite bluntly that if my infant son was not going to be getting tattooed, utilizing any sort of intravenous drugs, and therefore sharing
Right.
needles, or having unprotected sex anytime in the near future, what would
Right.
actually be the reasonable explanation for why we're going to introduce this into his system? And I got a little bit of a candid response, which didn't make me feel any better. And it was quite simply, well, it is part of the schedule, though I do agree with you.
Right. They agree, but they do it anyway because doctors are just overpaid legal drug pushers.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm sure you saw that story of that baby that died because they gave her shots that she shouldn't have had until she was after she was a year old. And I don't know how many different shots, and boom, the baby's dead. But remember, a lot of these pharmaceutical companies have immunity now, immunity from lawsuits, kind of like our cops. So, and now I know that another woman is being forced to have her son have a circumcision. And if she doesn't allow it, they're going to take her son from her and she's going to end up in jail. I think that should be a parent's choice what happens to their baby.
All right, and I elected not to do that to my son either, and it's simply because I am unconvinced that it is anything close to necessary. You know, and it seems to me as though physical alteration of one's body, unless it is by choice and later in life, is not something that I should inflict on the boy. And to introduce these toxins into his system that I view as toxins, and in fact, if you read EPA standards, you can do the math and find out that a whole lot of toxins are contained in those alleged vaccines, right?
Mm-hmm.
This should be my choice, I think, as a parent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But now the government is intruding on every level of our lives. Years ago when they started with the anti smoking thing, okay? And a lot of people said, well, I don't smoke, I don't care. And then I said, but sooner or later they're going to regulate what you can eat and how you can have sex. And everybody laughed. And then they decided, okay, you're not going to be able to buy a big gulp in a supermarket anymore, or in a store. I don't know where you buy it because I don't drink soda.
Mm.
And then the menus, I've got to put the calorie count on everything you're eating. Now with Obamacare and eventually where you're going to be judged on your weight to what you're going to pay for your health insurance, they are controlling what you eat. That's coming. And now you see in certain states where they're banning certain types of sexual relations between people. But I saw this coming. You could see it a mile away. Every law passed is a freedom lost. If somebody wants to smoke, drink, shoot heroin, kill themselves, it's none of my business. As long as they're not bothering me, that's their prerogative. It's their body. Do what you want.
Mm-hmm.
But with this government, they want to control every aspect of our life. They want to eliminate birth control, a woman's right to choose. I mean, just it goes on and on and on.
Well, and in all fairness, they want to eliminate everybody's right to choose everything.
I think they're sterilizing our population with all these vaccines, especially that Gardasil that they're putting on our children. I think their goal is, because don't forget they are one world order maniacs, I think their goal is to sterilize the population.
Well, yeah, and not just from one angle either. It isn't just the vaccines. It isn't just the standard sterilization. I mean,
Right.
there are loads of containers that your food and your drinks, whatever they may be, regardless of the level of health that you can obtain from them, it doesn't really matter because the packaging in most cases leaches and creates estrogen mimickers and things like this, which I dare say are not good for the male population.
No, unless you want to get a man bra.
Well, there you go. And of course, if you do occasionally watch television, I mean, I think every channel now has the, hey, if your young son was, injured by this particular drug that we pushed down their throat not too long ago, and they grew breasts, and they have gynecomastia, I believe is the proper name for it.
Right.
Hey, this is part of what happened here, and you may be entitled to some money now.
Oh, you can feel yourself up. Not be all crazy looking for a woman that you can feel up. You can feel yourself up. Maybe we'll all become, unisex. We'll all become unisexual beings.
Wow.
I mean, it's a wonder we don't have 3 heads already, like a lot of the fish coming out of Fukushima already have.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing with all the other poisons. It's amazing that we're not all sterile as it is already, right?
All right, listen to me, Chuck, because you were not around, and I want to just take you a little trip down memory lane when you were talking about food packaging and filth and all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I lived in an Italian American neighborhood. It was, my parents said it was a neighborhood. To me, it was a ghetto. And you didn't have supermarkets, all right? I'm older than supermarkets. Supermarkets did not exist. Okay.
Now there is a meme for you on Facebook right there. I am older than supermarkets.
Supermarkets. you had, if you wanted to buy meat, you went to a butcher store. If you wanted to buy fish, you had to go to a fish store. If you wanted to buy vegetables, you had to go to, fruit and vegetable stand. If you wanted to buy chicken, you actually went into a building, and this was happening in Brooklyn. I wasn't living on a farm. There was a building where it was maybe 3 blocks from my house. You'd go there, chickens are running wild on the inside on top of sawdust. You pick out a chicken, the woman murders it in front of you, plucks some of its feathers, and then you take it home for your mother or your grandmother to finish plucking it. And fish and chicken were wrapped in newspapers to take home. We ate fish that was wrapped in a newspaper with newsprint, okay? My grandmother, when she put the vegetables in the pot to boil them or whatnot, the bugs would float to the top and she would take a ladle and scrape the bugs off. It was the most natural thing. We knew our food was organic because the bugs were floating on the top. And yet we managed to survive. We managed to be healthy. We didn't have vaccines. My father didn't allow us to get especially a polio shot. I didn't have to wear a helmet riding a bicycle, and I lived. We didn't have seat belts, and we drove, forever. No, none of us died. And when you look at how we used to be compared to now, the only improvement I see is for humans is technology if they use it properly. But the technology is not worth the trade-off for the lifestyle we used to have.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This is what it gets down to, And again, though, I mean, it's not as though you're anti-technology per se.
I use it. It's made my life so much easier doing my work, even when I talk to clients, because I do consults with a lot of people around the world. Makes it so much easier than just the telephone and mailing them copies and whatnot. But I use it for its highest good. I don't even know what a computer game looks like because I don't waste my time on the computer playing games. I use it for something positive. But I remember a life without it. And you had family. Your mother could afford to stay home. You could support your family on your father's salary. You had family time with your sisters and brothers. There wasn't 24-hour TV. TV was on sporadically, a couple of hours a day, and you had maybe 7 or 13 channels. And then they were actually entertaining show. They didn't have canned laughter yet, which I abhor. Okay. And I think about how much simpler you had close family, your aunts, your uncles, your cousin, your extended family. That all mattered. And in less than 50 years, that's all gone.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first, sort of step to normalizing the disconnected nation was to make sure that there wasn't a core for anybody to go back to. And again, by design, there is no way to really maintain those homebodies that you used to have. We've talked several times about how, neighborhoods would watch themselves a lot. There wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
There wasn't the need to call in your local thugs, policemen,
They weren't all militarized either.
Oh, no. And they might have actually known who you were, where you lived, who your parents were, and what school you went to. That was, something they actually had knowledge of their communities as opposed to, being in a protracted sense at odds with the community there's allegedly policing,
Right. I mean, everybody's parents looked out for everybody's kid. I was just as afraid of getting nailed doing something I shouldn't be doing by one of my friend's parents as if it was my parents because they were all tight. You know what I mean? Everybody told everybody everything. Everybody knew everybody's business and watched out for each other. Today, I don't know, how it is where you live, but, Arizona, you come home, you drive right into your garage, which is connected to your house, and you never have to interact with your neighbors, ever.
Well, I don't live in the, nicest type of neighborhood, and it is, North Carolina, which I'm, still a relatively new transplant to, because, I came out of the Northeast. You can tell by the accent, I think. But
yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Plus,
People tell me you've been in Arizona 25 years and you still have that New York accent, and I'm like, why would I want to lose that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, it is who you are at this point, and why not stay connected to who you are as opposed to continuously adapting regardless? Because after a while, if you're so malleable, hey, Maria, and let's not get too afraid, but I mean, you might start to give in on stuff like this if you became too malleable out there.
No, I've not allowed this too much sunshine to fry my brain. It's kind of funny because today my daughter said to me, Ma, I realized that you're really like old school Cosa Nostra. And that just made me laugh. I just laughed.
Yeah, that thing of ours.
Listen, when you have to go to school, you have to survive growing up in New York. Every day is a challenge to show up alive at the end of the day, even if you were a girl, because everybody wanted to jump everybody. There was gang fights and, fights after school and all kinds of crap. It was like West Side Story on hyperspeed. You learn to lose that fear by the time you're 11 years old, because if you still have it after 11, you're going to be a punching bag for everybody.
Oh, you got it. Well, that's why I sort of laugh and sort of, vaguely sing your name a little bit when you come on sometimes, because I think
your intro.
I think of West Side Story. Well, I didn't want to torture you with the intro because now it's even more hard rock-ish and a little less overrun with the overdubs of my voice, so it's not quite as chaotic as it once was. So, but it's awfully obnoxious through the Skype, so that's why I did it.
I lived and grew up in West Side Story without the music and without the pretty costumes, okay? We lived in an Italian neighborhood. Your arch enemy at the time were Puerto Ricans. which is just like that movie. The Puerto Ricans knew they couldn't walk through our neighborhood without getting a beating, and we knew we couldn't walk through theirs without getting a beating either. And I saw many a gang fight, but when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and as soon as a cop would come down the street, everybody would hide their knives, their clubs, whatever, and start whistling. Okay. So it wasn't an operetta. Okay. It was intense. Okay. But it was normal. It was what I thought was normal because that's all I knew.
Yeah,
Uh,
no sharks, no jets, but
no.
definitely a rite of passage, as it were, which seems to be a whole lot more natural than a lot of the stuff that we're confronted with today. And in that vein, I'm wondering, because you do the news, on your website all week. I'm wondering what the standout story was for you this week.
Well, for me, the big story was these 47. And I was so glad somebody picked up that it was the same number that signed the traitorous letter to the prime minister of Iran, that even he knows that our Congress is nothing but a bunch of jerks. I thought that was a big story because it was the same number, 47. Wasn't that the same percent that Mitch Romney said 47% of the people in this country basically didn't deserve to live when he was running for office? So
Oh, that's right, Mitt.
right, Mittens Romney, the good little Mormon boy. Where in Utah, the Mormon state, they've just brought back death by firing squad.
Well,
Okay, what century are we in is what I want to know.
tip of the hat to Gary Gilmore, who elected to have that done for the first time in so long a ways back there. What year was that? That was somewhere in the 70s, wasn't it?
I barely remember it.
Well,
Barely remember it. If you know what, I need a much larger hard drive in my brain to absorb and remember as much crap as I already do. Okay, and I have a pretty good memory. But well, listen, people die of overdoses every day. Why don't they just? And that's what I said on my show this week. Instead of a firing squad, why didn't they ask Rush Limbaugh how many OxyContin do you have to take to drop dead? He'd be the
ooh.
guy to know.
Well, and of
It's
course,
got to be cheaper than bullets.
and hey, I love the fact that there is such a hypocritical right wing, puppet show that goes on too. I mean, we didn't get a chance, you and I, to discuss Bill O'Reilly, but I wonder if you have any thoughts about that whole thing, in light of what went on with Brian Williams and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
how come Bill O'Reilly didn't get the axe? Why was it just Brian Williams? And why were people so shocked? Everybody on public television is a liar. They're all reading a script. If 9/11 didn't prove how scripted news is, when that reporter at the BBC was saying how Building 7 fell and it was still standing behind her, nothing's going to teach them that everything they say is a script. They're just talking heads.
Well, after all, former tabloid television star Bill O'Reilly, right? Has a few more of those killing books to write. So, I mean, what are we up to now? Let's see. He's killed Jesus, Patton, Kennedy, Lincoln, the Truth. Okay, journalism. I don't know. I guess.
Listen, it's a very lucky thing that when I started my show, 15, almost 16, it'll be 16 years in June or July, I made a prediction. And I said, I'm here to tell you that the internet is going to replace newspapers, radio, and television. Only thing I left off was retail stores, which is a big part of what is losing to the internet. And I think it's a good thing.
You know what? So do I. Because any way to decentralize, the madness as they continue to, lessen the amounts of individuals who might actually have any sort of a say over the larger corporate entities that are, disguised as our media now. What are we
Right.
down to? Five? Are we down to five corporations, or is it
No,
still six?
I think it's less than five. They wanted if that Comcast would have passed, it would have been three.
Mm. And I'm sure you have something to say about that whole net neutrality issue.
Well, now it's a utility, and that's what I told my friends. I said, take a look at your electric bill, just your electric bill, which is a utility. All right. You don't even have to look at your phone bill. I can tell you that I looked at my electric bill. It was $189. Out of that, the actual usage of electricity was $59. So that means $130 is just fees and regulations, and you're paying for this, you're paying for that, taxes. My sense is that's what they're going to do now that the internet is considered a utility.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, you have to pay your protection money in order to be able to, have commerce, right? Of course, you and I have talked about this before, and even Jack and I talked about this before about how legitimately speaking, and we can both say this, you and I, for sure, because, we can't be accused of casting aspersions on another culture, because after all, both of us are part of that particular culture. But the Italian gangster, he wore a better suit, and you might actually get some protection for your protection money.
Right, they actually had a code of ethics, which obviously Congress doesn't have.
Yeah, well, and again, but everything else seems to be the same. That ways around the law, the exemptions and exceptions to everything that seems to be, what J. Edgar Hoover would rather sternly tell us was law and order.
Oh, yeah. Well, what? While he was putting on his dress?
Well, that too, and
You know what I'm saying? I mean, people have no idea that we have been ruled by the scum of the earth since the beginning of time in this country. We were founded by the scum of the earth, rejects from Europe that were forced out of their country. And I don't see that that's changed. And I mean, with this new Congress, I knew I was going to have plenty of material, but I didn't know how overwhelming the material would be coming out of these people. It's actually overwhelming to me.
yeah, well, that's the thing. It's absolutely endless. The hypocrisy, the ugliness, the
Idiocy
divisiveness.
that comes out of their mouths is beyond belief. I don't know if you saw that one guy that said, I don't remember his name, when he was talking about women, and he said, well, why can't they just swallow a camera so we could see the inside of their vagina?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, what the hell? These guys probably couldn't find the G spot if they spent the rest of their lives looking for it, because they don't know anything about human anatomy, but they want to control it.
Well, the G spot would certainly be the advanced class for someone who thinks that you can swallow a camera and somehow, get to the.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, you listen, most men don't even think about their prostate, don't even know where it is until they get prostate cancer. Okay. So if you don't even know your own body and your own dictates to your own body, how in the hell can you dictate to women what they should or shouldn't do or what's going on with their body if they actually believe you can swallow a camera and see the inside of your female parts?
Well, that just goes right along the whole, out of sight, out of mind mindset, as it were. And of course, if everything that is out of sight is out of mind with these guys, I'm quite sure that
Right.
their own male organs are also out of mind as well. Because anyway.
All I know is every time a guy like that opens his mouth, I say, well, that's one more dissatisfied woman that I know about.
Well,
Meaning
yeah.
their wives. And I don't know how any women can marry these men, and I don't know why any women would have sex with men that think that way.
Well, I will only try and imagine that pickings must be slim in some
Pickings are
of.
very slim. Pickings is slimmer than Slim Bob. Hey, listen, Jack just piped in with a story. He said that Carl Sagan's son, which I had seen earlier today, has come out and said that 9/11 was an inside job.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely missed that one.
Yeah, so more and more, well, I saw it on Facebook, and, to me, look, 9/11, I mean, I'd love to cover 9/11 more than I do lately, but there's so much more going on. It's like, how many hours am I going to talk? But I'm reading this book. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. I think his name is Donald Jeffries, and he's got a book called Hidden History or Hidden Histories, and he goes through all the conspiracies in this country since, like, I would say maybe he goes all the way back to 1940.
Mm.
And he does a great job on his chapters on 9/11. There's actually, believe it or not, a few things in there that I did not know, and I thought I had investigated 9/11 to death. He goes through the Kennedy assassination. I'm just up to the part where he's going through George Bush and his reign. He already covered the Clinton body count. He already covered the Reagan years. And one of the things that was pretty fascinating, I did not know this, and since it's free to talk on your show however I want, I can repeat what I read.
Mm.
He said that Nancy Reagan was known for being like the best blowjob in D.C., and that she actually gave a blowjob to Frank Sinatra and somebody else while she was in the White House.
Hmm.
And she's the one, that started the whole just say no, just say no for everybody else.
You have just given me a reason to not sleep well tonight, Maria.
What a visual. I don't want that in my.
I just, wow. You- oh.
It's like, wow, the more you think you know, the more there is to know.
Well, yeah, and and meanwhile the hand wringing that went on, around the whole Clinton scandal, and if you think that was one of
Yeah,
the
but you
worst.
know what? He covered a lot worse things about Clinton's sexual deviancies than Monica Lewinsky. He was also in the footsteps of Bill Cosby. There were quite a few women that accused him of rape, vicious rape.
Mm.
So, I mean, this guy doesn't leave anything out. And it's not like a smear book. It's not like that's all he talks about. There's so many great facts and whatnot in it about so many different things. But every now and then he throws a little curveball in like that. And you're like, what?
See, I wasn't aware Jeffries published. I knew that he was working on some JFK material a couple of years back because I'm always aware of that stuff. But I do know that he was actually being fairly responsible and not just throwing out things that didn't have a great deal of support.
Oh,
So
no, he's done a great job. I mean, the credibility. I mean, I see so many of my guests that I've interviewed through the show mentioned in his book, which gives him even more points as far as I'm concerned.
well, and there you go. So Mr. Jeffries ought to thank you because you just gave you just
I
gave.
know. I told him as soon as I finish the book, I'll let him know about interviewing him, even though I really didn't want to do any more book interviews because it's so much work. I'm trying to take my workload down some, but it doesn't ever seem to work out. I said I'm only going to do 3 shows a week. Then I get asked on other people's shows. It ends up being 5 or 6. So I'm like, okay, I have a magnet on my refrigerator. It says, "We plan, God laughs," and I remind myself of that every day.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm confronted with the same problem because I don't just simply read a book, and I don't think you do either, and just accept it at face value. You actually start to look into some of the things that are being described within.
Oh
That's
yeah, I mark it up. I mean, no one would want no one would want one of my used books except my good friends. They're like, I just want to read the parts you underline.
You know what? I was just thinking that I would most happily accept a book annotated by you. But I do the same thing, and I'll tell you, I'm actually trapped in a space right now with H.P. Albarelli's book because it's very detailed, very involved regarding the Frank Olson case. I don't know if you remember that or if that name rings a bell right away.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, well, we're talking, like CIA, MK Ultra,
Oh, okay. Now it
LSD.
does.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, in that vein, and I'm telling you now that this is an incredible piece of investigative journalism that's in this book, and I'm going back through it, but I don't just read a book and say, "Oh, great, I accept your story."
Mm.
I'm always crazy enough to waste large chunks of my life trying to verify things.
That's what I do. I mean, I write in the columns, this is bullshit. And if I see that he's done a good job on, he had written something in the book about the post 9/11 America, and he let out a whole stream of stuff. But what I noticed was he left off the police state. So I wrote that with a plus sign. So when I talk to him, I can remind myself, what about the police state too?
Yeah, I do the your annotations sound like mine, Maria.
Maybe we went to the same school.
Written along the margin in very sloppy handwriting sometimes because I'm
Oh
in
yeah, most of the time I'm on a treadmill, so it looks all crippled when I write it.
there
Because
you
I'm
go.
trying to read, write, and get my workout done at the same time.
Well, see, you're on a treadmill, but I'm legitimately so loaded with ADD. I've usually got like 6 things going, so the pen colors change and everything else because I have 3 pens out with 4 books, and you
Oh
know,
God, worse than me.
and
Well, the good thing is though, a lot of people at my gym always see me reading a book, and they'll always ask me, "What are you reading now?" And it always gives me a great segue to start talking to them.
Well, right, and and see, and that's the thing, though, is that we take more time to verify what we're reading than some authors, take in verifying what it is they're putting out there. Doesn't that always amaze you? And of course, that brings me right back to the Bill O'Reilly topic. But
But the other thing that amazes me is how many misspellings and misprints there are in published books these days. And there's no reason for it. Everything's done on a computer. Use your auto spell. Use your autocorrect. It's almost like some books look like they haven't even had an editor look through it.
I was thinking exactly that same thing the other day, is that actually the clerical errors in a lot of people's books have gotten way worse, in an age when a lot of this stuff is being done automatically for you. And I mean, even in the ebooks,
Right. Well, even if you see some of the posters, let's say on Facebook, they could be a great poster, but the spelling is so atrocious that I'm not going to throw it up there because I know people are going to start attacking the spelling, and I don't want to get into it. Do you know what I mean? It's like if you're going to say something strong, use a dictionary, okay? You don't even need a real dictionary anymore. Every computer has one. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, and as you're typing, even, generally speaking, you can have these things corrected. But, look, but at the same time, let's be fair. If you don't want to get your facts straight, why bother to spell correctly, too? In
Right.
cases.
Well, but I am old school. It's kind of funny because I don't usually on my political Facebook page. I have my own personal one for people that are actually my real friends. But I have heard so many people use the word irregardless that I woke up one morning and that word irregardless came into my head and I said, that's it. I'm going to make a post. I'm going to post something about this because it's just a double negative. It doesn't change the meaning of the word regardless, and people sound ignorant when they use it. So I decided to post that on my professional page, which is usually mostly news. And I was shocked by how many hundreds of likes and comments that got.
Well, because finally somebody's saying it. I mean, it's the the mashing together, as it were, of irrespective and regardless, not irregardless. Regardless of and irrespective. These two choices are acceptable, generally speaking. But. Again, I mean, I guess it's my lowered expectations. I don't.
But see, technology is killing us as far as our speech. I think they said the average person now uses something like 800 words, and that's about it.
Well,
so think about the average person. You look at kids, I'm sure you see it with your older children on their gadgets. Everything's an abbreviation, misspelled, short words, whatever, buzzwords, I would call them. Well, if those same children had to read, let's just say the Declaration of Independence, they would not be able to understand any of it because our language has deteriorated almost to the point of being cavemen. Well, soon we'll be grunting. Do you know what I mean? We'll just, you know what I'm saying?
With a smart phone.
Right. So when I look at some of the original documents, or when I read a book of Thomas Jefferson's writings, and it was so eloquent, so beautiful. I think, in every sentence they had to have words that had at least 4 syllables in it. Okay. Words that I had to look a few up and just see what's the meaning of this word. But for most of it, I could get through it. But if you look at our children today, and maybe this is deliberate too, to make them stupid so they can't even read the legal documents of this country. So when they walk into a courtroom, they don't know what's going to happen. They can't read it. They don't know their rights. And that's another fear I have with everything going to ebooks. What happens when an electromagnetic pulse happens and your computers are out and the books are gone? We're going to be cavemen. That's my thought.
Well, also, it's a whole lot more susceptible to alteration, so you allow the narrative to be controlled now by an amorphous entity which you can't hold responsible.
That's a big story on today's Facebook and today's news, is the cops at the first precinct in New York got busted for going over to Wikipedia and changing the stories about the murder of Michael Brown and I'm trying to think the guy in New York, Garner, that was killed. And they got busted because they tracked it back to the computers at the precinct in New York.
Well, for my 2 cents, Wikipedia is a completely, illegitimate source of information
I
anyway.
agree, but I mean, the cops are going in even into that crap site and changing the reality of it.
Well, but there you go. Anything to alter the possibility of raw information actually getting to the masses, it is a whole lot more susceptible. If it was printed onto, into a book form or into a paper form and handed out to people, you would literally have to, collect all of those things to completely disappear the information, wouldn't you?
Now it's just a couple of keystrokes and it's gone. Which, of course, is the reason why your show, Jack's show, my show, is so important for people to listen to. Because I know for a fact that not a one of us is a rich millionaire being bankrolled by the Ford Foundation or some gold company, okay? We're in it and we do what we do because we're suffering along with everybody else in this country. And because we actually have brains and time to think and give people the best possible truth that we can figure out in this madness that we're living in. So people support, all right, I understand people don't have time to do what we do. They need to support the people that do what we do because we can't have a job because we're too busy doing this.
Well, yeah, there you go. And if you do not, if you don't build it, they won't come. Well, if you don't support this kind of stuff, it will eventually disappear. So absolutely, I'm completely behind what you're saying. And for everybody who is fed up all the time with the controlled narratives in the mainstream media, if you're not going to bother to support those of us who are actually independent,
Right.
you're going to lose your right to complain really quickly.
Absolutely. I know a few years back when I was just blown out. I mean, I was just blown out. I couldn't keep doing this. I was like, I have to stop. I can't keep doing this. And I know that my listeners were the ones that talked me into keep going because they said that they felt that the day I go off the air, all is lost. And not because I'm saving it, but that I would have figured out that there's no point in doing this anymore. It's too late.
Yeah, and that would be a sad day, and I hope that I don't have to see that day, Maria, because I
But you know
absolutely.
what? It's a big responsibility. I take what I do as a responsibility. It's not a hobby. It's something I have to do for my children, for my grandchildren, for your cute little son, for Jack's kid. Okay? I don't want you guys to have your kids growing up in some futuristic nightmare.
Well, that's precisely why most of us do what we do, because we are concerned not necessarily about ourselves, but about the trajectory of things and where we are headed.
Well, look at the world I remember, Chuck. Look at the world how I described it to you. That was just 60 years ago.
Right, and that which is a vague fantasy to me is a complete unreality to the up and coming generations now. One interesting other note from your website, just really quick, because I'm kind of jealous of this, and I know Jack's talked to this guy too before, but
Oh,
Daniel Estulin,
oh, he's fabulous.
yeah, the
His
information.
book on transhumanism is fabulous. And when you look at all the gadgets that are coming up with, wearables, implantables, chips they can put in your brain so you won't need a computer. This is all part of killing off the human race. And the only thing that's going to be left are going to be zombies or robots of some sort. And I mean, his book on transhumanism, I don't remember the exact name, was absolutely fabulous. And then you should try to get him on your show.
The coming age of human deconstruction, I think.
I think that's the name of it. But, I know he doesn't live in this country, so he's a little hard to get a hold of. But if you can, I mean, he's absolutely worth it. Yeah, trans evolution, the coming age of human deconstruction. I pull up my own website, which I hardly ever look at.
There you
I'm too
go.
busy. People are like, Marie, you were so good on, you're so good on your show. And, did you hear this guy on this person's show? And I'm like, I don't even re-listen to my own shows. I don't have time. unless my audience says I was really wild and crazy or something spectacular happened, I will then say, oh, maybe I better go listen to it and see what the hell I said, right? Because
Right.
when I start going, it just keeps flowing. I have no control over my mouth. Never did, never will.
I totally understand you. I'm always wondering how my mouth is ever going to catch up to what my brain is doing, and it doesn't matter if I have a microphone in front of me or not. I'm always wondering that. And really quickly though, just Jules in the morning here does a show called Before the First Cup, and she covers a lot of this transhumanism stuff, and on a daily basis. And as she's turned me on to a lot of that information, which thanks a lot, Jules. You frightened the hell out of me regarding this stuff. I mean, it is endless where the technology is going, and how we are really still a childlike species that is not really prepared for the responsibility of, unleashing yet another entity onto this, fragile biosphere. Okay, that's my
Right.
opinion. But she covers that stuff, and Estelin, I would be very interested to see what he has to say about that. That's for sure. But all the great work you do over there is just is something to behold. And again, you're a trailblazer in this genre, or whatever it is you want to call it. We're really not like the alternative. We're just more like the real stuff at
And
this
well,
point.
listen, a lot of what passes for alternative is bullshit. Okay.
Hmm.
They're paid off by the same people. Still play both sides against the middle. Their shows are loaded with lots of fear and buy this, buy that, buy this, buy that. I made my decision when I first got started that no matter what, I wasn't going to have commercials on my show. I wanted my show to be like an education, not, buy this, buy that. It's not fair, even to my guest. And I find it myself when I'm on somebody else's show and you're in the middle of a great conversation and now you got to go on hold for like 5 to 7 minutes and you lose your train of thought and you lose your audience. So I asked people, not in the beginning because the show was always free. I was still making a living on the side, which I still am. Otherwise, my show would have been gone a long time ago. But I asked people and said, are you willing to pay to hear the truth uninterrupted with all these great guests? And you know what? I've never changed the price, not once in 15 years. $15 a month is worth nothing in today's economy. And it's still like pulling teeth. And those same people will pay $100 a month for television and to watch CNN and Fox News. They're welcoming that shit into their home and they're paying for it.
Yeah, that is the rather sort of disconcerting part of this, is that you see people that are willing to pay $150 a month to these great corporate entities to keep piping the same regurgitation and mind control into their homes, effortlessly, loaded with all sorts of consumerism, poison products, and not to mention the fact that entertainment in general has sort of gotten very bad, quality wise.
It's stupid. It panders to the most ignorant among us. It just does. And I mean, these reality shows, and I'm like, oh my God, is this representative of what the American public finds entertaining? How low can we go is the thought. I didn't even know that show. I don't know what the hell it's called, The Bachelor or whatever. I didn't even know that show existed till I saw a preview for it while I was on the treadmill at the gym on the TV. And all these women that looked like they were like 30 women fighting over this one guy, and he gets to pick like he's, in harem scarum or something. And I'm like, why would these women lower themselves like this? Is this really a show? I mean, I was stunned. I keep saying to myself, what century is this? I just found it so degrading and upsetting just seeing the preview. and this is America, okay? Planet of the Apes.
Well, at least it used to be America.
Well, yeah, maybe. Maybe it was. I don't know what it was.
Right.
All I know is a beautiful place before it was invaded.
Yeah, that's for sure. And it still had some beauty left in it before the Federal Reserve started its, now 101 plus year reign of terror.
I mean, think about it. We managed to totally destroy everything in 200 years. We've managed to destroy and pollute and filthy up everything.
Yeah, yeah, and there's no question about it either. I mean, I don't care which scientist you want to listen to. Not a single one of them has a prognosis of the condition of things that's positive, unless they're being, paid very, very, very well by somebody like Monsanto, to make sure that they get their Terminator seeds out there and all that kind of stuff, because it's actually very good for the environment.
Absolutely. People need to always follow the money. Any study, all those studies they were putting out that everybody had to get the measles vaccine. Okay. But those studies are all paid for by the people that make the vaccine. People have to say, don't quote the study to me. Find out who paid for it. Okay. When I was a kid, the measles was nothing. Okay. You had the measles, your mother put your sisters in the same bed so you could all get it over with at the same time. Okay. Nobody died from it. You had spots on you, for a couple of days and it was done. And you had immunity after that.
Which
And
is not.
I found a really cute little video. I don't know if you got to see it, Chuck. Of it starts out with the Flintstones and goes to the Brady Bunch, old time TV, and how they regarded the measles in specific episodes. It's great because it wasn't regarded as anything serious.
You know what? Somebody passed me just before the show. Actually, another look back at older television. Remember the show Barney Miller?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I remember that show.
I used to like that show, but when somebody passed me this clip that I have no recollection of, but I watched with my mouth open, as Jeffrey Tambor basically was supposed to be a kook that they picked up in the police station, and he explained all about the New World Order, the Trilateral Commission, One World Government, all this stuff, and I mean, did a bang up job explaining it.
Right. And people probably just looked at it and thought it was just comedy. I remember that was with Hal Linden, that show. But it reminds me of, I don't know if you saw that show about the firemen that Dennis Leary was in after 9/11.
Rescue Me, yeah.
Rescue Me. I mean, the show really started out good, and then it kind of just became like a soap opera. Who cared? But if you remember that guy Daniel on that, when he gave that speech about how 9/11 was an inside job, and people can Google that, go to YouTube and look at it. Mm-hmm. That was a phenomenal piece of television history because he told the truth. Even though they included it, as part of the episode and tried to make him look like he was a conspiracy freak.
Well, right. I mean, it's very much like, again, another thing. Every once in a while, these writers slip a little bit of truth in so that they can, convolute all the BS with something. I think that's what it is. They every once in a while have to cut the unreality with some reality, in order to get that drug palatable to the masses. I think that's what it really is. And of course, by drug, I'm talking about the mind control of the television that so many people still do worship at this point.
Right. Well, Jack just piped in to cure my memory lapse. It was Daniel Sunjata. He said he was my buddy. He narrated Loose Change 3.
That's who that voice is. Right. Oh. See, Jack's always on top of this stuff.
Well, Dylan Avery, who did Loose Change, is in the book that I'm reading by Jeffries. He talks about Loose Change and how certain people shut down Dylan Avery when he was asking them questions and truth. So, it's just, another little aside I thought I'd throw out there to whet your appetite.
Right. And, of course, and we've gone all this time, and I don't even recall if I said that you need to go to Meria.net and check out The Mouth That Roars. Of course, like I said at the beginning of the show, I kind of stuck on there that you're the founding mother of the alternative media, as it were.
I've been called a mother in my day. Or as we say in Brooklyn, half a word.
There you go. And, definitely you can, even if you check in the archives, find a couple of shows with my voice on it where we had some rather fascinating discussions. Not a regular contributor like Jack or anything, but But once in a while I do show up there, and we always have a discussion where the train of thought goes somewhere, and of course all the time has just about disappeared here because we are down to the last 20 minutes or so. And can you believe that? An hour and 40 minutes just went by, Maria.
Just like that, time flies when you're having fun. Jack is talking about something that I can't make the connection. Jack, can you come back on the show with us? He's talking about Devil Wears Prada and Mark Cuban.
Am I on?
Jack?
You sure are.
Yeah, I can hear you. What are you talking about?
Well, first of all, Daniel Sinjata is an amazing guy. And I remember one time he called us, and my wife will attest to this. And we were talking to him, and he goes, "Wait a minute, I'm backstage on Broadway." He was doing a big Broadway show, and he was about to do a curtain call. He goes, "Hold on a minute, I got to do a curtain call." And then he did it, and he came back on the phone.
Wow, how cool is that?
But he was the guy that narrated Loose Change 3, the part 2, because there was the first, part 2, because I think there was 1 and 3. And the big story there was that Mark Cuban, the inventor of sound on the internet, that's where he made his money.
Uh-huh.
He was going to finance Loose Change 3. It was going to be a huge major movie production. And there were all kinds of leaks and backstabbing going on. And Mark Cuban, I think his condition was that all the other previous Loose Change movies had to be scrubbed from the internet. This is the most downloaded movie in the history of the internet at that time.
Right.
And for some reason, he bailed on it. But, that's Shark Tank. He invented sound on the internet. Mark Cuban owns the Dallas Mavericks. And then now you have Daniel Sinjata. He's going to narrate Loose Change 3, which they have highly researched. It's going to be a massive movie.
That sounds great. I didn't know that.
And then it failed. And then I think Alex Jones put it out at that point.
Well, he puts a lot of people's careers out.
You did not say that just now.
I did. I said it. Anybody that goes on that show, it's like a death blow to them.
I didn't want to interrupt the show, but I was typing.
But you were typing, and I'm like, okay, I can't make the connection, Jack. Come back.
No, because that's the thing now. You get with your big product, and you get to go on network TV and present it to Mark Cuban and the others, and they will decide if you get to an investment and you get connected into the Illuminati distribution cartel.
I did not. I don't watch those kind of shows.
If they accept you, you're plugged into the Illuminati distribution cartel. It doesn't matter if you're literally peddling moldy shit. It will sell if they sell it.
Right. You can literally sell a clump of grass that a dog pees in because you only have a patio, or you can come up with a new food idea. Either way, enter the Shark Tank, and we will gladly, cut the legs out from under the possibility of your profit in order to make us a partner.
Chuck, but here it is. This is a huge idea. This is the biggest idea. It's the most tested. It's the most downloaded movie in the history of the internet up to that time. And then they started leaking things. And Cuban, if you guys remember, if you go back a couple of years, Loose Change 3, just Google it. Cuban was under attack by the media because they found out that he was going to produce this movie and he had to step out. That's not to say bad about Cuban. I think he wanted to do it.
Wow. Well, I almost have to hesitate to think that we're thinking about defending the motives of a Mark Cuban, but if good work can be done, I guess
doesn't matter who does it. It could be the devil at this point.
What ended up happening was Dylan went on into music video and Hollywood, as a bunch of our people have. All the best people, they went to how about that, Maria? All of the best people that have worked with us had got offers in Hollywood, and they're all making money. A lot of those people that
and that's how they get distracted from their mission. They use an expression back everything.
Chuck, right now, you have an offer, Maria.
Listen, I have
but here you go.
Jack, I had a couple of good offers, and my whole life, I always used the expression and fully believed it that everybody has a price. You just have to guess their price. And then the offers came to me. One was out of Canada, one was out of Texas. And both offers had strings attached. They wanted me to censor myself or my guest or the music I played. And I realized that regardless of what, and I didn't say irregardless, regardless, regardless of what they were going to pay me. And I mean, it was big money, Jack, and I needed it. I couldn't do it. I said, I cannot censor myself. It's a physical impossibility, and I won't do it.
Nah, no one will believe that, Maria.
But for Hollywood to come out, which you know is owned by, the Zionists, and they don't want any of the, especially 9/11 Truth coming out and their involvement in 9/11. I'm not surprised that they would wave a flag under somebody's nose and name their price. It's
I just
like
want to say for the listeners of RadioFreeBlood.com, we all know the Arabs own Hollywood, not the Zionists. So I just wanted to make.
No, the Arabs own Fox News.
The Foxman News?
News, yeah, the biggest investor
the Southern Poverty Law Center News, brought to you by the Southern Poverty Law Center. All right, hey, can I do this, you guys? I didn't want to pop back on, but can you let me do this real quick?
Go ahead.
I've been holding now.
I'm telling you, go ahead.
No, I've been holding for about an hour and 45 minutes, and all the listeners we had, we didn't lose one when you were on, you guys. But let me do this real quick, okay? All right, here we go.
You're listening to Radio Free Blood.
RadioFreeBlood.com.
Women want to mate with it.
And men want to kick his ass.
All right. So thanks for letting me get that in. Appreciate it.
That's pretty good. Women want to mate with it, men want to kick its ass. Very cute.
No problem, Jack. Just one of these days, you're going to have to play. We've got a bigger problem now, that other version that you used to play.
Well, send it to me. We're open. We'll do it.
Cool, because I used to love
Hey,
it.
my webmaster for one of the websites said it was not Loose Change 3, it was Loose Change 4. But, it's very confusing. Loose Change 2.5 to Loose Change 4. I mean, someday, Chuck, have me on the show and I'll tell you about the parties that used to take place at the big 9/11 conventions.
Listen, I'm open to it anytime. I'll be in touch with you tomorrow about that because I would love to get into that story.
All right, so we should do this right now. Can I do one more thing real quick?
Jack, the floor is yours.
All right, here we go. It's Radio Free Blood. Thanks, guys. I have to feed my people music every once in a while, or they get restless and they get angry. So,
Well, all righty.
And for those of you on the UCY.tv stream, excuse me, there I go tripping over my tongue. If you're keeping score at home, that's 2. All right.
UCY TV Extreme.
You got it. UCY.tv/TOE, which is where you would have went to hear this live. Hopefully you are hearing it live. If not, further downstream, I want to thank you. Of course, Jack Blood, Deadline Live.
Brand is coming up next, live. Just a feed from London right now.
DeadlineLive.info. I go there all the time. That's one of the few websites that I do still surf constantly. RadioFreeBlood.com. And, of course, Meria Heller, who is a one-of-a-kind trailblazer in this medium.
Super psychic. Hey, man, everyone called in when I put her on my 50,000 water in Phoenix. Everybody, the lines were jammed constantly. They wanted to ask her opinion for everything. You're so lucky to have her. Hey, Chuck, thank you for promoting my girl.
Oh, absolutely. I like I said, love you guys both. Of course, Meria.net. Go and check it out. The voice, the mouth that roars. There's 3 trips over the tongue. Okay, I filled my quota. Thank you. The mouth that roars, Meria.net. And like I said, all of those wonderful people over there and all the great stuff that Meria does, one of a kind, just like Jack Blood, all of you guys checking out the Ochelli Effect, which is actually the name of the show, though I've kind of lost control a little bit.
But you know what? This is really fun. I think this is a really good way of, like I said, we're doing a Soupy Sales show here where anybody could drop in. Wouldn't it be great if we could get do something like this all the time and have maybe 4 or 5 people, or people just pop in and out every couple of minutes? I think it's fun. What can I tell you? Fun is different for everyone. And like I tell people, FU sometimes ends with the letter N.
UCYTV.com. It's my affiliate, and tonight I'm their affiliate. So it's awesome. Thank you, Chuck. Hey, man. Thank you, Meria. Love you, girl.
Talk to you soon, Jack.
Blood and Guts. We're going to put it on this very channel right now. So when people know Blood and Guts are coming, we're going to simulcast it right here where people are listening right now.
There you go.
No, that's not copyrightable. All right, you guys, people.
I'm jealous. It sounds like both of you have had a glass of wine, and I haven't yet.
No, this is how I sound without the wine, Meria. You get me on the wine, you'll get a different experience.
Oh, boy. Are you kidding? My father used to make us gargle with wine if we got sick.
Right. I got the whiskey for some reason, but the wine will work too.
Yeah, but they used to get that homemade Italian wine that all the Italians were making in their basements of their house. And I used to tell my father, I'm convinced this wine is probably the cure for AIDS. That's how strong it was.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful thing. Plus, you never knew exactly what you might get it made out of. I remember strawberry wine. Did you ever see Italians make strawberry wine?
No, it was always heavy-duty, dark red wine. But, I mean, probably you could have made your room antiseptic with it. Oh, that's how strong it was. It was like deadly. You used to just bring your empty jars, your empty jugs, your empty gallon container or wine bottle to your neighbor. You give him a couple of bucks. He filled your bottle. You went home.
Right. And, like I said before, the last couple of minutes now, Jack has dropped off, and he's on his way to doing his thing. And it is what it is. Like I said, it is the Ochelli Effect. It seems as though I had lost control there, but loving it, definitely. And I can't thank you enough, Meria. I really do appreciate it, and I want you to know that I do feel honored that you choose to come on my show. And again, what else can I say except that, you have been amazing, not only with your innovation, but with your continuously sharp analysis of the news, incredible topics, incredible people that you brought together at Meria.net over there. If you're not a subscriber, go over there, check out the free stuff, and see if you can resist becoming a subscriber. And not
It's
much more.
always my pleasure. I know I'm in safe company when I'm on your show.
Are you sure though?
Not that I would stand down for anybody. My son used to say, "My mother doesn't lay down for nobody," when he was a little kid, because I was always in people's faces about something.
Well, if you weren't in people's faces, you would be laying down, and I know that's not what you're looking to do, because if it was, you would not be the mouth that roars. You would not be standing as strong as you do today, and incredible stuff. One of these days, we're going to have to get a little deeper into the spirituality thing. I had Joseph Anthony on this show, which, of course, another guy who comes on your network there.
Oh yeah, Joe's been doing the astrology show. Actually, that's what I have at my free show link, the month's astrology for March. Because people really enjoy it. A lot of my listeners say they'll go in and listen to it 2-3 times during the month just to see what's going on and put it together with their own life. And Joe's a great guy, another Goomba.
You got it. little more of that, varying complexion for the connection, as it were, because Italians come in all shades, don't we?
That's for sure. We're an interesting bunch.
Yeah, it was, you know what, and I still say that, Sicily was the melting pot long before America tried to become one. So there you go. And it is amazing what you brought together over there. Like I said, Joseph Anthony is another great contributor over at your site, and you could do it all by yourself, Meria. I know you can.
Why should I? I mean, it's taken me a long time to get all just the right people in place and get the show where it works for me too. Where I'm not killing myself like I, used to. Believe it or not, I used to do a 2-hour show, and that's just too much. So, I am getting a little older, and I want more of my own time for my own life and for people that are on their spiritual journey. I'd rather spend time teaching them what they need to know, because we're not going to change politics. Okay, I'll cover it, but the only ticket out of here is a spiritual one. And if people can't get their lives in balance, there's no point in being alive.
Well, right, and paying your spiritual, currency forward is just as important as everything else. So,
got to know the bigger picture, and there is a bigger picture, and we haven't even gotten into it. It's too late in your show to even get started on that.
No, absolutely, and with these last couple of minutes, I just want to say also that I do know that I'm not going to get any negative feedback from your appearance, because I never do. Every time you come on, people love you on here, and it's just wonderful to do. I'm wondering though, because I get negative feedback on my own show. As a matter of fact, a lot of people just seem to enjoy sending me hateful messages and things. You ever get any negative feedback from me appearing over on your website?
No, I don't. The only negative feedback, death threats I get is on certain topics I post on social media.
Oh, well.
And I often wonder, while they're all threatening me and saying these horrible things, if they actually realize they're talking to a senior citizen and a grandmother. They should be ashamed of themselves. So sometimes after the worst threat, I'll just write back, "Thank you for the kind words."
Right. Well, they're under the false impression that you might be, an easily targeted and
right, or a person that if we were in person, I would hesitate to slap them across the face. I would slap their features off their face. But some people misinterpret me for a sweet old lady. Big mistake.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess the only other odd thing is, they do seem to think that you may very well have been my mom in another life, and I agree with them. So
why not? Why not? I listen to you talk. It's like I raised you from birth.
It is odd how we've taken this journey and sort of ended up on the same part of the greater spiritual quilt. So anyway, I want to I want to thank everybody for listening. That extremely heavy bumper music, which I just changed recently, is going to kick in very soon. And, I want to thank everybody who decided to tune in at ucy.tv/TOE. The Ochelli Effect is just about done. And to the chat room people, sorry I did not get...